And what's been your relationship with Bitcoin? Because I think it first came on your radar back in 17, but you didn't really go in and invest yourself until 2020. Am I right with that? And what was your learning curve like? Because I had Max Kaiser in my studio here in 2013 screaming about Bitcoin. I had just met him after bouncing around on Twitter. And that's the first time I heard of it. I bought a couple, I lost them on a mobile wallet. And then I had Andreas Antonopoulos come here in 15 and 17 and 19 talking about the future of money. And Andreas is amazing, but I still didn't really get it until really this year where I finally got it. It took me a while. What was your journey like?
I mean, mine was similar. Basically, I think it's common that you need a couple different touch points before you get it. And so I mean, Max was super early. And the funny thing is, like, I had heard about it super early. It was like I had a friend that mined it on her computer back when that was possible. It was like 2010, and I was like, Bitcoin, that's neat. And it's like I was like, that sounds like cool technology. I spent 5 minutes learning about it. I decided I had no idea how to price that. It wasn't even, I don't think it was even at a price then. And so I just like maybe I should do that and just never did it. Right. So and I probably would have lost them anyway if I had done them. And then, fast forward, I occasionally hear about it and just thought, it's like this cool libertarian thing. You kind of you make your own money. Um, and I was like, I still don't know how to price it, and can't someone just copy it? And so again, I was like, I didn't dislike it. I just kind of it didn't interest me enough to really go into the rabbit hole and learn. And then in 2017, when I was having that very large bull market, I started to get a lot of client questions about it. And so I that was the first time I really sat down to try to make sure I understood it. And again, it's a spectrum, so you never fully understand it. But at least at that point, I put in enough hours that I could talk intelligently about it. And so I put out this long form research piece where I basically said it's really cool technology. Um, I don't know which cryptocurrencies going to win, because even though every one of them is scarce, anyone can make a new cryptocurrency and they're all competing. And that's also when Bitcoin Cash had split out of Bitcoin, and I didn't have a way to evaluate which one was going to be successful. And so I said, if you want to speculate with a couple percent of your portfolio, that makes sense, but be very careful here. It looks very euphoric. And that ended up being largely correct because you had a blow off top, but then you had a massive crash. And actually, they generally underperformed most other assets for the next 2.5 years. Um, and so I kept tabs on the space since then. I would update that article occasionally with fresh information. But over those 2.5 years, they started to answer more of my questions. So they basically, we kind of resolved the Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash split. I learned more about why block sizes matter so much. I basically saw that Bitcoin's network effect kept strengthening. I saw the early signs of institutions coming into the space with professional custodians, things like that. Um, and so by the time it was like late 2019, I was more optimistic on it. And then, of course, when you had the big liquidity crash of March 2020, I saw that it behaved very similar to, say, how silver behaved, where it crashed. And because I had a background in precious metals to some extent, I was familiar with those types of liquidity events. And so when Bitcoin's coming back up in April, it was like 6,900. That's when I recommended. I was like, no, I think it's worth an allocation now. I'm bullish on Bitcoin, and then I bought it myself. And then I continued learning from there, because once you own it, you naturally want to learn even more about it. And so I kind of expanded from, say, maybe 50 hours of research to 1,000 hours of research. I kind of put a big chunk of my 2020 research budget time into understanding Bitcoin and the bigger ecosystem. And so I've written, tens of thousands of words about it. I've researched almost every angle I can. And of course, you still never fully learn it, right? So it's like 10,000 hours to master it. If you actually want to be maybe a Bitcoin core dev or something, maybe 1,000 hours to get it reasonably well, and like 100 hours to kind of get it. So it's a very deep field. It's like the more you learn, the more you think you get it, the deeper the more you realize that you're still shallow in that pool.